China is really in a difficult position right now. They have a choice. They can either align with Russia and risk the world's ire, or they can keep its commitment to Russia and cause some challenges worldwide. China's moment's now. China could end the war in Ukraine, though it's unlikely to do so. So the big question is, what will China do? Will it be will it create an axis of autocracy, or will it rise to become a global leader and unifier?
Well, when you say that if it stays close to Russia, it risks the world's ire, I guess the point of that Chinese foreign ministry official was that it's not actually risking the world's ire. It's risking the ire of, okay, America and New Zealand and Belgium. But South Africa and India and Latin America are pretty okay with China's friendship with Russia. So in a certain sense, as China sees it, it's a rising new world order. And this whole sort of NATO plus the British dominions, you know, Australia, New Zealand, this is basically yesterday's team having one last fling.
Okay, I say that a couple of those countries that you've mentioned are just sitting on the sidelines waiting to find out what's going to happen. And second, Africa, you mentioned in your prologue that the world, the international world, only exists with certain countries. But actually, Africa has a lot of stake in what's happening with Russia and China and the United States, where there's lots of investments. Tanzania is likely to be has a lot of oil reserves, is likely to be a beneficiary with the energy crisis. Nigeria also has a big stake in this because they have a lot of oil as well, and they could have a lot more investment. So there are places around the world that may sit on the sidelines, but they are important players in what's happening now.
What do you think China's main interest in this war is? China has basically snaffled up the world without firing a shot, as your book testifies to. The Belt and Road Initiative is a way of actually conquering the world through debt instruments and infrastructure projects, rather than the Putin way of just going in and blowing up a lot of stuff, which I get the feeling the Chinese Politburo would regard as rather old-fashioned. But nevertheless, China is giving off the strong signal that however this war resolves itself, its interest is in not letting Putin appear to have lost the war, and that their assistance is designed effectively to ensure that however it all shakes out, he will not appear to be a big loser.
I think the G7, NATO, EU are all meeting this week. Biden's going to be in Brussels on Thursday and then go on to Poland. I think that there will be a unified message from these Western countries, and they will say to China, you're not going to support Russia in this war. If Russia were to fail in its goals, then the question for many of these countries is, what side are you on, especially for those countries that are sitting in abeyance?
Yeah. Why do you think, though, because it's been presented on Western television as basically the most obvious moral choice you can make. One country's been invaded. The country that's been invaded is the little country, so it's the David up against the Russian Goliath. Everyone loves Zelensky zooming into these parliaments in his tight T-shirts. You'd have to be a fool to take the part of Putin up against Zelensky. Why do you think that's the way it's playing on American TV, British TV, French TV? Why do you think it's proving more difficult for other countries in what one might call semi-Chinese orbit? Why do you think it's proving more difficult a choice for them?
I think this is an economic war as well. I don't think countries realized before this all happened how much of an impact the economics was going to have on all countries. It's going to, well, yeah, I mean, most of this has to do with economics. No country wants to lose their bread and butter. Neither does the European Union. They don't want to offend China in any way. And yet they want to send a strong signal to China as well.
What, in that case, let's look at a country that explicitly, in many ways, declares itself as a rival to China, sees itself as a rival to China, and a country that certainly, from London's point of view, is seen to one degree or another in the British orbit. But India, for example, India has been doing, just done a big deal with Russia, a deal that's being done in rubles and rupees without the US dollar. And that ought to be worrying in Washington, isn't it? Because the Chinese plan, the Chinese basically believe the only thing holding up America is its World War II status as the global reserve currency, Bretton Woods and all that. That basically, if it weren't for that, China could assume global dominance without having fired a shot. So isn't one of the other aspects of this current situation likely to be the weakening of the dollar and the moving of certain parts of the world away from the dollar and to some of these Chinese-led alternatives?
So for India, its contracts were made before Russia entered Ukraine. So so I don't think that India was blindsided. I think China was also blindsided. I do not think that China knew the impact, world impact that entering Ukraine would have, even if they did know that Russia was going to enter. So I think that some of these countries are making decisions because they made these decisions ahead of time. China, you're right. It's very possible that the dollar could decline. There's a cryptocurrency and other currencies that are likely to move forward and take a bigger share of trade and relations. This is happening with China and its Belt and Road Initiative projects. Many of them are using Chinese currency. So there is a likelihood of the dollar declining.
Yeah, and interestingly, all the parts of the world where Belt and Road has been very active, for example, in the Indian Ocean, in Africa, in Latin America, they're all the people who've been most silent on this war. Do you get the sense, you're an American and you're invested in the future of your country? Do you get the sense that the political class in Washington understands the potential gravity of this moment?
I think that there are two sides of America, and politically, they do not agree. They talk about Congress being united, except they seem not to be able to have the President of the United States do much of anything. I believe that there are people that are on the president's in the president's circle who have their own side interests, and that's why the president is not doing a whole lot. Though Congress, I believe, does have an interest in taking more action. So this is a moment, and I don't know if Biden's up for the task, but we can only hope that that more will be done, and that that Biden can step up to the plate and take more initiative.